So, the latest edition of the Twitter files are out. Matt Taibbi has published more revelations, and I have to say, I think this is the most interesting of the Twitter files yet, because what he has unveiled is a direct interference in the operations of Twitter, direct censorship that was carried out by the FBI and other government agencies. There's no other way to put this. There is no dressing it up. The U.S. federal government, unabashedly, not through cutouts, not kind of indirectly. No, they just straight up called Twitter and said, hey, we've got people here who are saying dangerous things, and you need to shut them up. Click. And guess what? Twitter followed their orders. In the words of Matt Taibbi, I think this was what he even titled the whole thread, Twitter, an FBI subsidiary. That's all it is. Twitter is the FBI cutout. The FBI wasn't using cutouts to try and censor people on Twitter, like by creating an NGO, and then the NGO, would say, hey, this person is dangerous, they're spreading disinformation, and then Twitter would go, well, you see, this independent NGO says that, your speech is bad, so we're going to censor you. They didn't play that game. Twitter, under Yoel Roth, who it seems pretty clear, whether it's 100% him or not, Elon is making Yoel Roth, I think, the big villain of the Twitter files. At least that's how it is so far. Now, it might be that in reality he was, the biggest villain. But he's kind of at the center of all the Twitter files so far. So Yoel Roth was in direct contact with the FBI. He had an FBI handler in San Francisco. The San Francisco FBI field office could make pretty much any call that they wanted on censorship. And this went so far as to censor obvious jokes and parody accounts because the FBI said, well, these jokes are not factually correct, and so this is misinformation, this is disinformation, we can't have this around. And so if they're censoring jokes, you know that they're censoring any kind of dissident speech. I mean, the jokes go well beyond dissident speech. Saying something like, hey, Democrats, remember to vote on Wednesday, November the 9th, or Republicans, remember to vote on Wednesday instead of Tuesday. That's an obvious joke. People made jokes like that for decades and decades and decades. Yet the FBI thought that was dangerous speech. If they think that's dangerous, every word that comes out of my mouth, and probably your mouth, and everybody else who has two brain cells to rub together, is going to be, I think, dangerous in the eyes of the FBI. So under any plain interpretation of the U.S. Constitution, the FBI, which is already an unconstitutional agency, they're not in there, the FBI just unilaterally going around and ordering the censorship of individual citizens is about as blatant of a violation of the First Amendment, of freedom of speech, as you can imagine. It's the state shutting people up. This is not what the state is allowed to do. And there, you can try and be a weasel. Like, I'm sure David French is making this argument as we speak. He's probably furiously typing away at whatever blog he's a part of now. I don't think he's at National Review anymore. But, the David Frenches of the world are furiously typing up, well, sure, the FBI might not be a private company, but the FBI didn't say that Twitter had to do it. Twitter is still the private company making the decision, so it's okay that they're just, following the FBI's orders. And, it's not like if the Twitter said no to the FBI that there would be any consequences for them. When in reality, we all know, if you're a big company like this and you don't work with the feds, if you go against the feds, you're not going to be a big company for very long. You're going to get investigated by them, just like Elon is right now, and you probably will end up like Alex Jones, frankly. They'll run you into the ground. They'll find some way to screw you. What was it that Chucky Schumer said about when Trump was criticizing the deep state? He said something like, oh my gosh, those guys have 6 ways to Sunday to screw you over. You don't mess with them. He was being honest. But the David Frenches of the world, they don't understand this. I think they do understand it deep down, but you know, you have to remember David French is, and a lot of these guys, they're either ex-FBI, ex-DOJ, ex-Pentagon. They're spooks. They're bureaucrats. They're feds. That's who these people are. Just like when you have all these NGO cutouts, which, again, I'm surprised. The FBI didn't even really have to utilize them. The FBI directly interfered with Twitter and told Twitter what to do and who to censor. But I would have thought it would be something more like you have an NGO funded by Congress and staffed completely with ex-FBI agents, where it's obviously, all these people are ex-FBI, quote-unquote, but their salaries are paid by Congress. They are acting as FBI cutouts. But that's not what you had here. It was just straight up, yeah, Agent Chan, I think his name was Elvis Chan, going to Yoel Roth and saying, hey, Yoel, see these like triple-digit follower accounts? They're saying things that we don't like, and you need to shut them up before they become a problem. The FBI had a staff of up to 80 people just going around and picking on Twitter anons to pluck them out, single them out, and say, you know what, you're dangerous, you need to get out of here. That's how much that they were micromanaging a public opinion. They were going after the smallest voices imaginable. So if they're going after small fry like that, that means that they feel that they've dealt with all the big guys a long time ago. You ever wonder sometimes, you know, hey, it's a little suspicious that all of these companies just happen to move, in unison and cancel someone all at the same time. You know, they cancel their bank account, cancel all their social media, cancel their Patreon, back when people still used Patreon. All of it happens, seemingly overnight. I think that, the earliest example, I think, was Laura Loomer, which was really creepy because it happened all at once. And, not that I'm a fan of Loomer. I never cared for the person. But Alex Jones, I think, is probably the most prominent example. But they're willing to do this to anybody. So what happens is a call goes out, and all these companies, they get the Fed call, and they're told, hey, so-and-so has been unpersoned. Now erase their existence. And that's what they do. Debanking is the final step, and once the Fed has finished the transition to the digital dollar, it will be possible to completely unperson someone. Because currently, if you get debanked, at least you can still use cash. But not for long. Not if the Feds have their way. And I don't want to conflate the Fed, the Federal Reserve, and the Feds, meaning federal agents. They are different entities, but at the end of the day, they're all on the same side. They are allies. They're all a part of the blob. Again, as George Carlin always says, it's a big club, and we ain't in it. Yoel Roth was in the club. Vijaya Gadde was in the club. Jack Dorsey was in the club, though I think he was one of their less aware members. So the moral of the story is, Twitter, as we suspected, is 100% now confirmed to be an FBI cutout. The FBI was censoring speech through Twitter, and then Twitter was able to hide behind well, we're a private company, bro. You can't, just because we happen to censor everything that goes against the government's narrative doesn't mean that we're working for the government. You're just crazy. All of that gaslighting's out the window. It turns out that when you see all of these sites censor only what goes against the regime's narrative and leave up completely ridiculous statements, not that I think anybody should be censored, but they would leave up completely ridiculous, so-called misinformation or disinformation, if it supported the regime's narrative, or at least, was indifferent towards the regime. But anyone, whether they were factual or unfactual, if they opposed the regime's narrative, they were censored ruthlessly. So, in conclusion, is the GOP Congress going to do anything about this? No, absolutely not. Republicans don't care. The Republicans, very pro-cop. They love this at the FBI. They're all a bunch of spooks as well. There are select dissidents within the GOP, especially in the House. So, will there be some noise made over this? Perhaps. But the one time that Congress tried to rein in the FBI, you got the Intelligence Committee in both the House and the Senate. That was supposed to be a permanent fixture, of the Frank Church Committee, which was looking into the CIA and other intelligence organizations. And guess what? The Intelligence Committee is always filled with pro-spook shills. That's all that they get there. You get people who are compromised or otherwise aligned with the CIA, FBI, and all of the other three-letter agencies. There is no check on the deep state's power. And so, as long as the American Union is intact, we really have no recourse. The Union is broken as far as that is concerned. The Constitution is broken. There is, you can't just, yes, it's unconstitutional, but what are you going to do about it? There's nothing that can be done. It just is. So the constitutional order has broken down, I think, more blatantly than ever in this case, because it is the least divisive, and most universal. It is the First Amendment. And yet that has been shredded openly by our government. And there's nothing we can do about it. So, perhaps tomorrow I will talk about what must be done. So with that said, I will see you folks back here then.